Greetings, everyone. I am coming to you live from JOL headquarters in my house, and do a little Q&A video thing for you tonight. People have been asking for it. I've been a little under the weather, and then busy with spring football and the end of the men's basketball season and everything else. So I've been a little tied up lately, but I felt like tonight was a good night to jump on and kind of talk to everybody and answer some questions. So appreciate those of you who've joined me, and we'll get started here in a minute. As always, feel free to jump into the chat with additional questions. I will kind of hop back and forth from what's on the JOL thread and what's in there. And then also a reminder, we're running a spring promotion right now in Jackets Online. It's one of our better ones, so I ask that you jump on if you're a fan. There's plenty of people who watch these things who don't subscribe. The promo code is GTSpring24. It's half off an annual subscription to Jackets Online. Tell your friends if you are a subscriber. That's a great way for us to grow our fan base, continue doing more things with the site, and build it up to do more stuff. I'd like to hire some more writers and have more people and do all of that stuff, and I need your help to get there. So if you could spread the word, I'd be much appreciated. Also take a second to thank Intellica, who are our network and equipment ITAD solutions company that sponsors Jackets Online. If you have needs in those fields, feel free to reach out to them. Run by a Georgia Tech alum. Great company. There's a link on JOL on the top of the board for them. Great company. So feel free to reach out to them. We're going to try to do an event with them actually next month. So be a little bit of a chance for y'all to come see something in person. To kind of jump in with the spring questions, kind of what's been going on since we last spoke on here. It's interesting. I got back last night. I was at the Fannin, Thomas A. Fannin Student Athlete Performance Center. I think that's what its official title is. And cool event. Got to hear Jay Batt, Brett Key, President Cabrera, and Dr. Fannin himself, who's talk about just sort of the future of Georgia athletics. It was interesting. There'll be some stuff this week that I'm going to write from that. I'd been a little tied up with some family stuff today that I had to take care of. One of my kids had to go to the doctor and stuff, so I didn't have a chance to kind of dive into it. I didn't want to short shrift it. So, but the first question and the thing is about that ceremony. And what was interesting to me, Brent, I think, is getting much better at doing those type of engagements in the public speaking and stuff. You can see the growth year over year and him doing all that. Cabrera is always very good at it because he has to do it all the time. Jay's a little more buttoned up. He's got to learn to loosen up, I think, a little bit, but he's always very informative and right to the point. One of the big things that both Jay and Cabrera and Brent both talked, all three of them talked about in the thing last evening was just the investment in Georgia Tech athletics and trying to level things up. And Brent said a line that would, obviously ring true to Georgia Tech fans, that the goal of Georgia Tech football is to graduate and develop young men into great people for their future. And the second goal is to win championships, starting with the state championship and then moving on to ACC championships, and the other things would fall into place if you handle those things. And, it was good to hear him say that. It's not something that, I think needs to be said, but it does need to be said sometimes, that people forget that, there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of catch up to begin. There's been 15, 20 years of kind of stagnation. And, the team to the east has spent a lot of money and really invested in their things, and Georgia Tech's trying to play catch up. And it's important to Brent that they play catch up and they catch it, and it's a much more equal rivalry down the line, and it's getting more competitive, but there's a long way to go to get to where he wants to be, where it is every year you don't know what's going to happen in that game, and that's his goal. And whether it's achievable or not, that's time's going to tell if he can execute his plan and what goes on over there. And I think it was very interesting to that was kind of a key point of something he said, that he realizes what needs to be done and has a plan and how to attack it. Like a Georgia Tech person, he has multiple plans of attack. So, I'm pretty excited to see kind of how this all unfolds. There's many more things going on with the stadium and lots of construction going on. The Fannin Center is just a piece of like a lot of our larger other projects going on in the stadium area around Bobby Dodd, and I think it'll be very cool in the future as they start to implement some of these plans. They're going to try to make the stadium more premium, probably echoing a little bit what you experience if you go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium for like a United game or a Falcons game. I don't know I haven't been there as a fan when Tech plays, so I can't really tell you about what that's like and how that compares, but it's having a more premium experience for people available, and not just have the same old stuff they've always had. And that's something Jay's very passionate about. Jay Bad will ask me and others, like when he sees us, about our experiences, even on our end as media, which shouldn't matter to him that much, but it does. He clearly wants to know how they do things, what can be improved upon, all those sorts of things. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. And there's, the unspoken thing in the room too, what's going on with the ACC and the future of college football and how it evolves and where this is all going, because no one knows. And everyone's trying to position themselves to be in as good a spot as they can be if dominoes fall. And if they don't, then okay. But if they do, you want to be positioned to make a play for whatever it is you're trying to do. Dr. Fanning, I thought was really entertaining. Hearing his speech, maybe I'll put up the audios from yesterday on the site in the interim for people to listen. I recorded each guy's speech, but he was pretty entertaining and just talking about Georgia Tech. And Danny Hall was there, Bud Peterson was there, and then a lot of heavy hitters that invested in Georgia Tech. And so it was good. And there were some people that I thought would be there that were traveling for business or doing other things that couldn't be there. But all in all, I think there's pretty strong investment, seems like, in Georgia Tech athletics right now from both the president side of things and the GTAA trying to grow what they're doing. And I think it's very encouraging kind of what else going on. I think there's some better people around the program now too. And that's something else that I would, be quick to point out, is just even in my interactions with some of the people that are not in my sphere have been improved tremendously over the last few years. So that's kind of exciting to see. Next question. Who's a realistic big that we can attract with our NIL budget that will move the meter for us next season? I posted about Lynn Kidd today from Virginia Tech. That's like the prime example. He would fit in great what they're doing. He just went in, so I'm sure they're going to try to reach out to him. That's one I would totally expect them to go after. There's a lot of guys like that, 6'10" to 7 foot, can block shots, rebound. knows how to play in a space game where there's a lot of 3-point shooting and stuff going on. I think that Len fits into that well, and I think that would be a good fit. Good fit for him if he chooses to come to Georgia Tech, of course. Like, one of these things you never know is like who's lined something up or whatever when someone goes into the portal. So that can always be an X factor in all these recruitments. I did. So someone asked more about the Fannin building. The way that it hasn't been totally laid out. Like, Coach Key actually showed me around the summer kind of pointing out some things that, to be honest with you, I can't remember at this point. I don't think it's probably something for public consumption, but they're moving a lot of stuff around. They need more space for football. They're going to get some more space for football and all of this. Because the one thing about the Edge building is it's sort of like it's like a maze from like the 60s. And it is a very like 60s style building, even though I think it was built in like 1980 or something. But it just there's lots of like poorly used space, poorly designed space, weird kind of hallways that go nowhere, lots of dead ends in the building because it's all sort of glommed onto the stadium. And they've kind of, I think, tried to address a lot of that. So it'll be interesting. I think there's a lot of stuff still going on in terms of the final designs and stuff, and in terms of the interior pieces of things, because that always is kind of an evolving situation. But there'll be a lot of cool stuff. Brent told a funny story about how they had one of the things that attracted him to Georgia Tech was they had sports science stuff when he went there. They had like they attached electrodes, and he said that electrode machine's still in the Edge building somewhere, like probably not working these days. Like they're trying to like get back to being what Georgia Tech is, which is a cutting edge school, right? Like it's a technology, marrying in the technology with the sports and athletics. And they really got away from that. You had a coach who's kind of old school, and Paul Johnson. Chan before him was kind of old school. O'Leary was certainly an old school coach. And I feel like they've drifted away from being innovative in that way, using sports science. Jeff Collins, one of the few things that he did, I think, well, was trying to embrace some of that stuff. I froze up. Sorry, guys, I'm having a little technical issue. I'm still having. There we are. We're back. I'm sorry about that. I gotta get this webcam thing fixed. I don't know what's going on. It was working fine. I actually tested it out for a while, and so anyways, Georgia Tech technology. They're trying to get back into being cutting edge with all of that stuff. Someone asked about Bryson Tiller. They're still in play with Bryson Tiller. That Bryson Tiller's a 2025 kid, not a 2024 kid. OT elite, 5-star, small forward, number 6 country right now on Rivals. They're still in the mix for him. Whether they get him or not, I don't know. Other than Ireland, what's the away game for football that you were circling on the calendar, excited to go to this year? That would be the Syracuse game, because that is the last of the 2023 adaptation of the ACC that I've not been to. I missed that game in the COVID year because of they had like that whole state on lockdown. Not to get into it, I don't want to like talk about whatever went on there. I don't really care. It's all in the past now, but you couldn't really go to Syracuse during that, and that was one of the earlier games during that whole weird season. Ended up being able to go everywhere else, but that was in like serious lockdown, so we didn't go. And then they had the whole controversy with the testing and stuff before the game, and then got their butts kicked. So I'm excited to go there. It's one of the few places I haven't been in the ACC, and yeah, looking forward to checking out the Carrier Dome for a football game. I've been there a couple times for basketball now, so that's the one that I would circle. It's not been on the regular rotation of late. Been to Louisville a few times now. Obviously, been to Carolina and Blacksburg a lot. So that's the one that and if I were to tell people, I would say that's a cool place to go to. There's good food. Dinosaur Barbecue is awesome. Great place. I went and hung out at the bar there a couple of years ago after one of the basketball games. And had a great time eating barbecue. And even though it wasn't like, Georgia or Carolina or Texas barbecue, it was still really good. Do you have any sense of what Cabrera, Bat, etc. think of conference expansion? I'm sure they're working behind the scenes to make sure the Tech has a place at the right table, but it would be comforting to hear. They don't want to talk about it. And I think there's nothing to talk about. Like, if you even look at the schools that are in lawsuits and stuff, they're being pretty cautious about what they're saying with the league, even at Clemson and Florida State. There's a lot of grandstanding and things like that going on for boosters and people around those programs, but not as much. Even the Bubba Cunninghams of the world or D-Rad down at Miami or whatever, no one's going to talk about it because until there's some sort of resolution one way or the other with the grant of rights and how all that stuff's going to work, I think that there's no point in talking. Like, I could ask Jay Batt and he would give me some kind of like BS answer because that's all he can give you, because he's not going to talk about on the record what he thinks is going to happen or not going to happen. And it's not right for him to do that, speculate about it either publicly, in my opinion. Or Dr. Cabrera for that matter. Like, they should be focused on doing things behind the scenes and not being vocal. Because I think if you are a complaining program, like, I feel like Florida State has done themselves a disservice by the way they've acted publicly in terms of when schools look at them to add them in the portal. With Clemson, in the portal, I said, it seems like teams are in the portal. In conference expansion, like if you're the SEC, do you want another headache? And it'll be interesting to see how they like swallow Texas, who's a huge headache, in Oklahoma. Like, that may color some of this as well going forward. The SEC doesn't need to expand. The Big Ten doesn't necessarily. I think they will if they're trying to build a super conference, but it'll be interesting to see what these teams do. And then I think the Big 12 kind of sucks. Like, if you look at it from a football perspective, they don't have any teams that have won anything in terms of national championships or any of that stuff. So, like, what is their big selling point? At least in the ACC, you have Clemson, you have Miami, you have Georgia Tech, you have Florida State, who have all won national championships in my lifetime. And in the Big 12, I think you got BYU and Colorado, who have pieces of one. And, that was 90 and 85 or whatever. So, like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Someone wants to know the chances with Carlisle and Caleb Wilson. No one knows what's going on with the portal, guys. Portal thing will happen very quickly. We don't usually have like a real kind of read on what's going on, other than guys visiting and visits going well or whatever. A lot of it's business sometimes with some of the kids, and some of them it's look fit and personality and stuff. We'll have more of an idea, but most of those guys are just starting to take visits and stuff, and they didn't even take like Carla didn't actually take an official visit. He just did an unofficial visit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Hard-hitting question. When you open up an Oreo, do you go for the cream filling or the cookie first? I'm like I eat the Oreo usually like normally. If I'm like eating Oreo, like if I was at home and someone handed me a bag of Oreos, I'm a little bit lactose intolerant, but I will get some milk and dip it and eat it and milk from the milk. If I'm like somewhere and someone gives you like the little 2 Oreo cookie pack, I'll just eat them as cookies. I'm not tearing them apart and trying to eat the frosting. I mean, the filling, cream filling. What are your thoughts on the chances with kid from VT now that he's in the portal? There was earlier chatter that Stoudemire had eyes on him. Yeah, I don't know where that chatter came from. They had eyes on him. They haven't talked about him, and I talked to a pretty good source about this. Like maybe today, and they would definitely be interested, but that hasn't they're sort of abiding by what the rules are. So now that he's in, it will become more of a discussion. Who are the spring standouts so far? I mean, dude, they're barely hitting. I think that. Come on. All right, I will try to see if I can get this going again while we enjoy all this weirdness here with the thing. Just to check, can you guys hear me okay? I can't even tell that. 1, 2. Okay, so you guys can hear me. Fine. Spring standouts. Hard to say. Spring standouts. Like I said, they're not hitting yet, really. I mean, they're just starting in pads and stuff. I would say that I would look for, they're very excited about Leo, where Leo's at, just how he looks coming off his injury. He's running really well. Someone dropped it. It's awesome. Chase Lane, those guys, they're excited about them. On the defensive side, I think it's a little early. I think Santucci has a good plan for what they want to do with Kyle Eifert and Trent and Jackson Hamilton and Lightsey and Tajay and those guys and how they're going to be used in the future. So I think they're excited about those guys, but it's still really early to start talking about who's standing out or not standing out or whatever. We haven't even gotten to scrimmage yet. So we'll have a scrimmage on Saturday. I think that's the time to ask me about it. I can take some questions in the chat here. I don't want to go super long tonight, so because I got to go to tech in the morning, but we'll take a few questions out of there. From Ben, how many freshmen do you think will start next year at Tech with current players committed? So this is a basketball question. One maybe. I don't know that. I don't see. So I don't see. I'm just cleaning up the offer start here. I don't see Darian Sutton starting. Not everybody in Dongo. Dorian starting, I would be surprised. I think Cole Kerouac's going to redshirt. Jaden Mustafa feel like more of a bench guy. They'll come off the bench. I don't think he's starting over Nate George or Lance Terry or Miles or whoever else is on the team. So I'd say it'll be less. This year was much more about the roster pieces they had and also Bai being so good that he starts. But maybe someone will emerge like Bai does. You just never know with the way things work in basketball. Damon's very open to playing whoever he thinks gives him the best chance to win. So if that's, starting 2 freshmen, then sure. But out of the guys committed right now, I'd be a little bit surprised if anyone starts next year, but I guess you never know, and it depends on what's going on. Question, I know Dewana and Amari are out, but is Tech targeting anyone in the portal yet? Yes. So, how does he say his name? The Carlisle kid from Stanford, the guard, he visited, and this ended up getting out on Twitter anyways, but it was on JOL first, broke the news. He visited this weekend. He is, a pretty talented guy, very athletic, sort of like Davon Smith, a former OTE guy. There's, I think, a strong push for him to maybe come home, if it makes sense. I know that Indiana's involved there and some other schools. He committed to Stanford. I think it was over Baylor and Auburn were the other two finalists. He's just like a really competitive dude. I think he brings some of that fire that Damon's looking for, and I think that that's what's going on. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting pickup. I don't know if they'll get it done or not. It would be interesting. I think he fits in really well with what they're doing, though. Is Justin Pippen going to commit? I put in a future cast for him to Georgia Tech. He was still thinking about two OVs. I don't need to check and see if he actually took them or not. I know he was talking about maybe Colorado to Florida. Scotty's very tight with David Stoudemire's dad, Scottie Pippen, and they had a great OV to Georgia Tech, and I think that one's pretty close to being done. I think they have a good shot there, but there's so many moving pieces right now. Things could change in a heartbeat, just because of guys going into the portal and creating situations that are open at other schools. I think Cal was trying to get in. Was it Cal? Not Colorado. Cal. Sorry. Cal was the other school involved. That Mark Madsen was trying to get him to visit. I feel good about their chances there, but it's one of those interesting things. Like, if you get Carlisle, do you take Pippen? Then I don't know. That's where there's going to be a little bit of a game here with spots and who makes sense and those things, and what you want to use your spots on that you have left, because they'll have. I expect probably one or two more guys to go in the portal. Sometimes there's a surprise, sometimes not. So, like last year, they lost Jalen Moore really late. Could there be like a situation like that with somebody too? Like, maybe. So we'll see. But I feel good about Pippen right now to Georgia Tech. Yeah. So I think overall with football, it's still really early. You got to remember they were out for 10 days for spring break. They've had one practice back. They'll practice tomorrow morning, and then Friday and Saturday, I think. Friday, there's no media if they're doing it. I can't remember the actual schedule. And the Saturday, they'll scrimmage in the stadium. And then we'll talk to Brent afterwards. So that'll be really interesting to see where things stand with the program, in spring ball. I think Brent Key's like really optimistic about where they are. They would like to add some more pieces in the portal in the off season, in spring portal. And there'll be some guys who probably leave as well. There just always are. So, I don't know. What's your feeling on Miles coming back? Debo, I imagine, is still leaving. I would think Debo will leave just to go play somewhere. Debo's whole thing probably comes down to when he's graduating, I would think, and kind of where they are with their numbers and stuff. He seems like a kid that has his head on really straight. His mom and family are really cool. He was like fishing last week in spring break, which I thought was pretty funny. He's just kind of like a country kid. I think he could go somewhere and have an immediate impact for somebody. I think it's a little bit of a struggle for him on the physical side at the level of the ACC right now. Ever since his Achilles injury, like that really sapped him in terms of some of his quick twitch abilities. With Miles, I feel pretty good that as long as they can, swing a deal to keep him around that he likes, I think he stays. I think he's being challenged, which is interesting for him to see how he reacts to that, being challenged by Damon's coaching and what BJ and Person and Bonzi Wells and those guys have done with him in terms of his coaching, trying to push him to do more as a guard and be a more all-around player, not just a spot-up shooter. And you could tell that took a little bit of a mental toll on him, and then having the bad back this year too. Did any of EJ Lightsy's injuries impact his mobility or strength? Don't know. I mean, he's, semi non-contact or whatever Brent said. I forget or Tyler, one of them, talked about it. He's a little bit limited this spring. As far as I know, he's fine. Like he wasn't. They would know if he was damaged goods. That wasn't like an expectation coming in that he would be limited on any front. My thoughts on why so many ACC teams get in the tournament to get bounced. It seems like more ACC teams like Wake should have gotten in. Yeah, that's all media perception, man. Like, there's so much of what goes on with these things there's a percent. The ACC sucks at selling themselves. I talked about this on Twitter during one of the tournament games the other night. They have the marketing prowess of like Sears and Macy's and Rich's, like post 2000. Like, it's just brutal. Like, they don't understand what they're selling, and they're getting their lunch eaten by Amazon, or I guess in this case you go Walmart and Target. The SEC would be Walmart, and Target would be like the Big Ten, I guess, because it's Minnesota company. But they just suck at it, and like they're like Fred's or something now, like, or Roses or whatever. Like they've got to figure out how to, Kohl's maybe like the more apt current of the big box retailer type places, but like they got to figure it out, man, because like they suck at selling. I thought the basketball was pretty good this year, and that's something I complained about last year too. I'm one of the few people on earth who watched every team in person last year and watched every team in person this year from the league at least once. And then saw SEC games too. I covered some Alabama games. I've watched a lot of AAC basketball. I've watched some Big Ten games and Big East games, and there was not a demonstrative difference between Wake Forest and Texas A&M, for example. Right, Texas A&M got in the tournament. I just think it's like a bunch of BS, and like these teams think if like Duke and Carolina aren't number 1 and 2 and knocking everybody out, that the league sucks. And it's stupid because it doesn't make any sense. And it's all about the perception of the league. The Big East has Rick Pitino and all these guys, and the ACC now is sort of devoid of those big name coaches that have sort of that brand recognition or whatever, the thing that carried them for so long. The Jim Boeheim's gone. You're down to Leonard Hamilton and Larinaga as sort of the legendary dudes that are left in the league. And then you have guys who can coach but are not proven at this level, like Steve Forbes or John Shire or Damon, or and then you've got sort of people that are viewed sort of as like this sort of fringe, not great coaches, or sort of not like elite coaches like Kevin Keats or Jeff Capel or Mike Young at Virginia Tech. Like, and people look down on those guys because they're not Rick Pitino or John Calipari, or not considered hot names like Nate Oates at Alabama. I think he's a pretty good coach, or Bruce Pearl or whoever, or Rick Barnes at Tennessee. Like, and those guys are getting the benefit of the doubt, even though if you watch a lot of SEC basketball, it was okay, but was it better than the ACC? No. And somehow they got more teams in, so I think it's kind of crazy to me. Everyone is talking about the spring portal window being chaotic and will eventually look at it as a turning point for the sport. Do you expect any crazy things for Tech? I think Tech's in the buyers, going to be in the buying market, not the sellers market. It's going to be interesting, though, if it goes down like Josh Pate, I think, is one of the people that's pushing that. Some others, they're hearing crazy things, and we've already seen some crazy stuff. Caden Proctor just went to Iowa and then went back to Alabama. And then there were rumors about Caleb Downs leaving Ohio State to go back to Alabama. And there's, schools trying to fill their missing pieces, and guys leaving Michigan now, and all the stuff that's going on. It's kind of going around and round and round. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if there's this like big boom of like people. But I know that Key's positioning to add 3 to 5 guys, probably almost exclusively on defense, because if you look at their numbers, that's where the roster's flipped a little bit right now. Like, they're almost at their full scholarship numbers on offense for spring ball, and defensively they're down. I think they only got like 30 guys in camp right now. So yeah, I think it's going to be real interesting to watch, because you had all this coaching movement in the offseason too, and what goes on there, and how people like or don't like the new coaches that were replaced, to maybe like some running back doesn't like his new running backs coach or whatever it is at some school, and they go in the portal. There's a lot of that going on. How's Leo Blackburn looking so far from what we've seen? Is he running with the ones? I mean, we're not like I can't talk about like what I see, and plus what we see in practices. So like inconsequential now. We're not watching full practices or whatever. We're seeing like a few minutes of like not not even 11-on-11 stuff, not even 7-on-7 most of the time. They expect Leo Blackburn to be the starting wide receiver on one side, and Eric Singleton to be the other, and Malik Rutherford to be the slot, and Chase Lane to probably be that X factor guy that slots in and out. And maybe Abdul Janae and Isaiah Canyon or whoever like come in and they're in the mix, or Trey Horn or whoever it is, Bailey Stockton. There'll be some other guys. Christian Leary also will be in there too. But no, I mean, Leo looks, from the clips they put out and seeing him run around and say he looks great, but he looked great and back in bowl practice too, like running around for the first time. So it's it's going to be more about, can he stay healthy? He's bounced back. He knew what to do to rehab. It's not like, now I'm not in a position to even be able to judge, like if you watched him run like routes on a corner or something, like I don't know that I would notice like the difference in his speed or whatever, because I don't think I have enough like basis of having watched him play to even be able to tell you that. So I don't know. No, the kid seems pretty happy at Georgia Tech, and he turned down some pretty good opportunities elsewhere this offseason. Stay at Georgia Tech. Hearing really good things about Ben Galloway, right guard with Big Red out. Do you see him playing in the rotation? Yeah, I think so. He would be, if they played tomorrow and Keelan Rutledge, Big Red, was healthy, I think Ben's probably the third guard. I think that's actually something they're probably working on this spring, is figuring out who the guards are and like what that rotation looks like. Ben did a really good job. He jumped over like Tyler Gibson and Kyle Leftwich, who tried to play some guard, and some other guys. They have Gabe Fortson cross-training at some guard. Brandon Best has played there some. Jordan Brown's played some, at least in practice. Harrison Moore, I think, is a freshman that's probably got to do a little bit of work in the weight room, but they're excited about him in the future. So they have a pretty full room, and, they have depth at tackle, so you don't really need to move anyone from tackle to guard. So I would say, yeah, I think Ben's very much going to be in the rotation. It'll be interesting to see if they teach him left now to try to cross-train him a little bit or not. But I guess with Keelan out for probably most of the spring, at least it sounds like from what Coach Key said, that Ben's going to be needed at right guard, and maybe that's the way you bring him along, and then you develop, Gabe Fortson play some left guard so he can get into the field, because Weston Franklin's so strong at center. So it'll be interesting to see how they do all that. Do you see them rotating more lines during games this season with the added depth? I mean, yeah, they were in a pretty heavy rotation situation for much of the season with Ethan McKinney and Corey Robinson. Ethan McKinney's learning both tackle spots now to, I think, be the third tackle. I think Patrick Screws and I think Patrick Screws is sort of the next guy up that we'll get to learn some stuff. And then Jordan Floyd, who's certainly looks the part, man. Holy cow. He looks like an old man out there, like some NFL veteran. So between him and Screws, they got some pretty big dudes in the pipeline there in the offensive line. I think it'd be encouraging to see them. But, ideally on the offensive line, you kind of want to limit how much you rotate and stuff. There's a chemistry aspect of it too. So especially in that guard box, like most of the time, most teams I see really do not rotate in a guard box. Tackle, it's a little bit easier, and that's where they rotated last year. What style of defense we set to run or have players for? They want to be 4 down, multiple nickel defense that stops the run up front by controlling the line of scrimmage, and then linebackers clean up. And that has been the struggle that they've had. And the real struggle with the last defense was the linebackers are constantly either not in the right position or put out of position, or guys couldn't hold their point of attack on the defensive line, or there'd be guys shooting the wrong gaps or the wrong run fits. And when you have all of that stuff, it creates all these bust plays where you're giving up 8 yards, 15 yards, 25 yards on a run. And that's the stuff that kill the defense so much of the time. You give up these chunk plays and let the other team stay on the field. That was what that kid, the running back, both Bowling Green and Boston College did that in those games, right? You couldn't get off the field. So that's a big area of emphasis is cleaning up. That's one of the things Santucci was really good at Duke. And Mike Elko's been really good at the guy who was his mentor. So I'm excited to see if they can execute that. What should be a reasonable goal next year for basketball is the NCAA or the NIT. I think getting into the postseason on some level would be a realistic goal. I think when you talk about the NC2A, it probably depends on what they get in the portal. If you're able to go get like a big piece like Lynn Kidd and you keep Miles Kelly and you have Bai and Nate George, and then you've added in whoever else, maybe you add a veteran combo guard like Carlisle or someone else, or just Lance Terry comes in and balls out, then yeah, I think that, you have the potential to be a tournament team. Here's the reality too with the men's basketball team. If you go back and look at the season, right, if they just beat Notre Dame 2 times in the regular season, they should have beat them. You beat Boston College 1 time, so that's 3 more wins. You are, I think, almost on the NIT bubble at that point. I'm trying to think about what Boston College finished. But yeah, that would have put you ahead of Boston College and went into the NIT. So, the way I look at it is like the margins are not super far to getting in, at least into the NIT. I think, they've shown the flashes to be able to play with pretty much any team when they're on. It's more about finding that consistency game to game and being able to find things to rely on when maybe your shots are not falling. That was the killer for them this past season when the shot wasn't falling. They seemed to fall to earth. But if you go back and look at the regular season, right, they could have beat Nevada and the Diamond Head. They should have beat Boston College, should have beat Notre Dame, should have beat Duke at Duke, which was they got really screwed by the refs in that game, I thought. Pitt and VT beat them pretty good. NC State game was pretty close at NC State. The Wake game was a blowout. They should have beat Louisville. That was one of the worst games they played. They got out of hand at the very end. If you can just get out of that stuff, I think you would be in better shape. This probably the last question. Agree. Linebackers played below par last year. Any new faces jump out to challenge Eford and Tatum? I think Kyle Eford's going to be your starting middle linebacker type guy, and they're going to build around him. I think what happens at the other spot, if it's Trent, Tatum, if it's Jackson Hamilton, whatever goes, EJ Lightsey, do they mix him in there? Tajay Butler? I think those are the core guys that you're going to see them find out. And then it gets interesting, like, does Nakari Ashley or Jacob Cruz find new life with the new staff? It felt like I think Shearer wasn't super into those guys for whatever reason. Do they figure it out, and does Santucci see something there? It sounds like he likes what he has because they're not, from what I understand, they're not trying to go out after any linebackers in the offseason. So if they're standing pat, then I think Santucci feels pretty good about what he has to deal with. But time will tell. Injuries, all of those things. There's lots of stuff. There's 1, 2, 3 more weeks of spring football ahead. So we'll see what happens over that. I think a lot can change as they start hitting, getting in pads, guys getting contact, getting physically challenged. How do they respond to the mental challenges that come with being in full pads, playing, hitting, tackling every day? All of those things are going to coalesce and create whatever the vibe is in that linebacker room. So appreciate everyone. Thanks for joining me. We will try to continue doing these more regularly, probably like a Tuesday and Thursday or Thursday night for the next couple of weeks while we have Monday, Wednesday, Saturday practice schedule at Georgia Tech. But if there's any big news breaking in the interim, we'll probably jump onto like portal or something with basketball. But thanks, everyone. Appreciate you. Have a great night.